history. Stay tuned on Cinema Craze for amazing facts and a review of this unforgettable animated masterpiece. Toy Story 3 is a 2010 American animated adventure, comedy and drama film made by Pixar Animation Studios and released by Walt Disney Pictures. It was directed by Lee Unkrich and written by Michael Arndt. The movie is the third film in the Toy Story series and continues the story after Toy Story 2, which was released in 1999. The film features the voices of Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Joan Cusack, Don Rickles, Wallace Shawn, John Ratzenberger, Estelle Harris, Jodie Benson and John Morris. The story takes place several years after the previous film. Andy Davis has grown up and is now preparing to leave for college. As Andy gets ready for this new stage of his life, Woody, Buzz Lightyear, and the rest of his toys face an uncertain future. Due to a misunderstanding, Andy's mother accidentally donates the toys to Sunnyside Daycare instead of keeping them stored away. At the daycare centre, the toys meet many new characters and experience unexpected challenges. As they try to find a way back home, they must decide where they truly belong and what loyalty and friendship really mean. The road to making Toy Story 3 was not simple. In 2004, disagreements between Disney CEO Michael Eisner and Pixar CEO Steve Jobs led Disney to plan a new version of Toy Story 3 through its Circle 7 animation studio. The movie was expected to be released in early 2008, and several versions of the script were developed. However, when Disney purchased Pixar in 2006, the Circle 7 project was cancelled and the studio was shut down. After that, Pixar took over the production and created a completely new story and script for the film. Composer Randy Newman returned to create the movie's musical score. With a production budget of around $200 million, Toy Story 3 became one of the most expensive animated films ever made. The movie had its world premiere at the Taormina Film Fest in Italy on June 12, 2010. It was then released in theatres across the United States on June 18, 2010. It also became the first movie to be released in theatres with Dolby Surround 7.1 sound technology. Just like the previous Toy Story films, it received extremely positive reviews from critics and audiences. People praised its voice acting, emotional story, screenplay, animation quality, and Randy Newman's music. Many viewers considered it one of Pixar's greatest achievements because of its powerful themes about growing up, change, and friendship. Toy Story 3 was also a huge success at the box office. It earned more than $1.067 billion worldwide, making it the highest grossing film of 2010. At the time of its release, it was the fourth highest grossing film ever made. It also became the first animated movie in history to earn over $1 billion worldwide. The film remained the highest grossing animated movie until Frozen was released in 2013. It was also Pixar's highest grossing film until Incredibles 2 surpassed it in 2018. The movie received many awards and honours. The National Board of Review, the American Film Institute and Cahiers du Cinéma all included Toy Story 3 in their lists of the 10 best films of 2010. At the 83rd Academy Awards, the film received 5 nominations and won 2 Oscars, including Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song. It also made history by becoming only the 3rd animated film ever nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. Because of its success and popularity, a sequel titled Toy Story 4 was later released in 2019, continuing the adventures of Woody, Buzz and their friends. Andy Davis has not played with his toys for many years and is now preparing to leave for college. He plans to take Woody with him while Buzz Lightyear, Jessie and the rest of the toys are placed in a bag to be stored in the attic. However, Andy's mother accidentally mistakes the bag for trash and puts it outside for garbage collection. The toys manage to escape, but they believe Andy wanted to throw them away. Feeling hurt and unwanted, they join Barbie in a donation box that is being sent to Sunnyside Daycare. Woody tries to explain that it was all a misunderstanding, The other toys refuse to believe him and choose to go to Sunnyside. When they arrive at Sunnyside daycare, the toys are warmly welcomed by the toys who already live there. They are given a tour by Lotso Huggin' Bear, also known as Lotso, along with Big Baby and Ken. Sunnyside appears to be a wonderful place where toys can be played with every day. Barbie quickly becomes attracted to Ken and the two begin to grow close. Most of Andy's toys are impressed by the daycare and decide to stay there permanently. Woody is the only one who disagrees and decides to return home. During his journey, a young girl named Bonnie finds him and takes him to her house, where she happily plays with him and her other toys. Back at Sunnyside, Andy's toys soon discover that life there is not as perfect as it first seemed. They are placed in a room with very young children who play roughly and accidentally damaged toys. After experiencing this difficult playtime, Buzz asks Lotso if he and his friends can be moved to the room for older children. Instead of helping them, Lotso has Buzz captured. It is then revealed that Lotso secretly controls Sunnyside like a dictator. He explains that all new toys are sent to the toddler room to protect the toys already in his group, even if the new toys get damaged in the process. Seeing potential in Buzz, Lotso has him switched into demonstration mode, causing Buzz to believe that Lotso is his leader and commander. At the same time, Mrs. Potato Head discovers that one of her missing eyes is still back in Andy's room. Through the eye, she sees Andy sadly searching for his missing toys. Realising that Andy never meant to throw them away, the toys understand they made a mistake. They decide they must escape Sunnyside and return home. However, before they can leave, Buzz, who is now under Lotso's control, captures them and throws them into prison on Lotso's orders. Meanwhile, at Bonnie's house, Woody meets a toy clown named Chuckles. Chuckles tells Woody the truth about Lotso's past. Long ago, Lotso, Big Baby, and Chuckles belonged to a little girl named Daisy. One day, they were accidentally left behind during a family trip. After a long journey back home, they discovered that Daisy's parents had replaced Lotso with another identical bear. Heartbroken and angry, Lotso convinced Big Baby that Daisy no longer cared about them. Filled with bitterness, Lotso left and eventually took control of Sunnyside daycare, turning it into a place where he ruled over the other toys. After learning the truth, Woody returns to Sunnyside to rescue his friends. He reunites with them and helps organise an escape plan. During the escape, Buzz is accidentally reset again, but instead of returning to normal, he switches into Spanish mode. This new version of Buzz becomes friendly, energetic, and immediately develops feelings for Jessie. His funny behaviour creates several humorous moments while the toys continue their escape. The toys successfully make it out of the daycare building and reach the dumpster outside. However, Lotso and his gang catch up to them before they can get away. As a garbage truck approaches, Woody reveals the truth about Lotso's past and his lies to Big Baby. Realising he has been deceived, Big Baby turns against Lotso and throws him into the dumpster. The toys attempt to escape, but Lotso grabs Woody and pulls him into the trash. The rest of Andy's toys jump in to save Woody, and all of them end up inside the garbage truck. During the ride, an old television falls onto Buzz and restores him to his normal personality. The toys are taken to a large waste processing centre. Most of them are dropped onto a conveyor belt that leads Wood toward an incinerator. Along the way, Woody and Buzz even save Lotso from being destroyed in a shredder. Later, they help him reach an emergency stop button that could save everyone. However, once Lotso is safe, he selfishly abandons them and leaves them to their fate. With no way to escape, Woody, Buzz, Jessie and the others hold hands and prepare to face the end together. Just as all hope seems lost, the aliens arrive and rescue them using a giant industrial claw machine. Later, a garbage truck driver finds Lotso and straps him to the front grille of his truck as a decoration. Meanwhile, Woody and the other toys make their way back to Andy's house in another garbage truck. The truck is driven by Sid Phillips, now an adult, who was the toy-destroying neighbour from the first Toy Story film. Back at home, Woody leaves a note for Andy. Andy finds the note and believes it was written by his mother. Following its instructions, he decides to donate his toys to Bonnie, who lives nearby. When Andy arrives at Bonnie's house, he introduces each toy to her one by one and tells her about their unique personalities. He is surprised to discover Woody inside the donation box. But after Bonnie recognises and loves Woody as well, Andy decides to give him away too. Before leaving for college, Andy spends one final afternoon playing with the toys alongside Bonnie. It is an emotional goodbye as Woody quietly says farewell to his longtime owner. After Andy drives away, the toys begin a new chapter of their lives with Bonnie. Sometime later, Woody and the other toys learn that Barbie, Ken and Big Baby have made many positive changes at Sunnyside Daycare. Thanks to their efforts, the daycare has become a much happier and fairer place for all the toys who live there. Tom Hanks as Woody at the heart of Toy Story 3 is Tom Hanks, who returns to voice Woody, the cowboy pull-string doll who serves as Andy's most loyal companion. Hanks has been the emotional cornerstone of the franchise since the very first film in 1995, and his performance in the third instalment is widely regarded as his most affecting. By 2010, Hanks had spent 15 years inhabiting this character, and the maturity of that relationship shows in every scene. Woody's unwavering belief that Andy still needs his toys, even as the teenager packs for college, is rendered with warmth and understated conviction. Hanks does not merely lend his famous voice to an animated figure. He brings the full weight of a seasoned dramatic actor to a toy with a heartbeat. The tearful final sequence, in which Woody and his friends are handed off to a new child, is inseparable from the quiet devastation in Hanks's voice. Few animated performances have carried so much emotional heft, and Hanks's work in this film stands as one of the finest of his career, animated or otherwise. Tim Allen as Buzz Lightyear Tim Allen reprises his role as Buzz Lightyear, the delusional space ranger whose journey through the franchise has taken him from overconfident newcomer to trusted friend. In Toy Story 3, Allen is given an especially rich comedic opportunity when Buzz's memory is reset, reverting him to his original factory settings and then accidentally switching him into his Spanish language mode. The sight and sound of Buzz performing flamenco-inspired moves while passionately serenading Jessie in a mock Spanish accent, voiced separately by Javier Fernandez Peña for the Spanish version, gave Allen room to explore a physical, comedic dimension of the character that had not been seen before. Allen's natural comedic instincts, honed through years of stand-up and his long-running television career, are perfectly suited to Buzz's blend of earnest heroism and unintentional absurdity. The character's reset storyline also gave Allen dramatic range. The moment Buzz is rested and recognises his friends carries genuine relief. Joan Cusack as Jessie Joan Cusack returns as Jessie, the yodeling cowgirl whose deep-seated fear of abandonment was established in Toy Story 2. In this third film, those fears resurface with renewed urgency as all the toys face the very real possibility of being discarded forever. Cusack brings both energy and vulnerability to Jessie, making her one of the most emotionally complete characters in the ensemble. Her chemistry with Allen is particularly effective during the Spanish Buzz sequences, where Cusack plays Jessie's flustered but clearly flattered reaction with spot-on comic timing. Beyond the comedy, Cusack's voice work captures Jessie's fierce loyalty and her terror of being unloved, themes that resonate deeply with the film's central anxieties about growing up and letting go. Ned Beatty as Lotso among the new cast members joining the franchise for the third film, none made a more significant impact than Ned Beatty as Lotso Huggin' Bear, known as Lotso. The character presents himself as a warm, strawberry-scented patriarch of Sunnyside Daycare, avuncular, reassuring and seemingly benevolent. Beatty's rich, honeyed southern drawl is perfectly calibrated to make Lotso's early charm utterly convincing. But as the story peels back Lotso's facade, Beatty shifts seamlessly into something darker. A broken, bitter toy who has allowed his own abandonment to curdle into authoritarianism. The revelation of Lotso's backstory, told through chuckles, reframes him as a genuinely tragic villain, and Beatty's voice carries the sorrow and resentment of that history. It is a performance that makes Lotso one of the most memorable antagonists in Pixar history, complicated in a way that few animated villains achieve. Michael Keaton as Ken. Michael Keaton joins the cast as Ken, Barbie's fashion-obsessed counterpart who presides over Sunnyside's wardrobe with passionate intensity. Keaton's casting was a masterstroke. His naturally energetic, slightly manic delivery gives Ken an irresistible quality that is simultaneously silly and charming. Ken believes deeply in style, diplomacy, and the restorative power of a well-fitted ensemble, and Keaton plays all of this completely straight, which is precisely why it works. The character's arc, in which he defects from Lotso's control out of genuine affection for Barbie, gives Keaton a small but rewarding redemptive moment. The fashion show sequence, in which Ken models outfit after outfit for Barbie while narrating with breathless enthusiasm, is a comedic highlight of the film and speaks to Keaton's willingness to commit fully to the absurdity of the role. Don Rickles as Mr. Potato Head. The late Don Rickles reprised his beloved role as Mr. Potato Head, the sardonic, perpetually grumpy toy with a detachable everything. Rickles' naturally caustic persona fit Mr. Potato Head like a glove from the very beginning, and by the third film, their identities had merged so completely that it was impossible to imagine anyone else in the role. The film provides Mr. Potato Head with one of its most inventive visual gags. Separated from his body, he temporarily inhabits a tortilla and then a cucumber, forcing Rickles to deliver lines in an entirely absurdist context. He played these moments with his characteristic deadpan irritation, making what could have been a throwaway joke into one of the film's most beloved sequences. Estelle Harris as Mrs. Potato Head. Estelle Harris returned as Mrs. Potato Head, continuing her warm, comedic partnership with Rickles. Harris gave the character a maternal exasperation perfectly balanced between genuine concern and weary amusement. Always fretting, always loving, and always a beat or two behind the chaos unfolding around her. Her brief plot thread involving a lost eye providing a remote view of Andy's room gave Harris a surprisingly tense, dramatic moment amid the comedy. Wallace Shawn as Rex Wallace Shawn reprises Rex, the anxiety-ridden Tyrannosaurus Rex, who worries constantly about being replaced or discarded. Shawn's distinctive, nervous delivery has always been perfect for Rex's chronic self-doubt, and in Toy Story 3, he finds fresh ways to make the character's neuroses funny without ever making him unsympathetic. Rex's genuine delight at having an instruction manual for a video game, treating it with the reverence of a sacred text, is one of the film's quieter but most endearing character moments. John Ratzenberger as Ham John Ratzenberger, who has voiced a character in every single Pixar film, returns as Ham, the wisecracking piggy bank. Ratzenberger's sardonic timing makes Ham the ensemble's resident cynic, always ready with a deflating observation. The character functions as a kind of Greek chorus, pragmatic, slightly world-weary, and perpetually unimpressed, and Ratzenberger plays that role with the ease of long practice. Blake Clark as Slinky Dog. One of the most poignant casting decisions in Toy Story 3 involves Slinky Dog. Jim Varney, who had voiced the character in the first two films, passed away from lung cancer in February 2000, a full decade before the third film's release. The role was passed to Blake Clark, a close personal friend of Varney's, who took on the character with great sensitivity. Clark studied Varney's earlier performances and worked to preserve the warmth and gentle loyalty that defined Slinky while bringing his own authenticity to the role. The decision to cast a friend who genuinely understood Varney's spirit rather than simply finding a sound-alike was a gesture of respect that, resonated with audiences and critics alike. Jodie Benson as Barbie Jodie Benson, best known as the voice of Ariel in The Little Mermaid, reprised her role as Barbie, who had appeared briefly in Toy Story 2. In the third film, Barbie plays a considerably larger role, proving to be one of the story's unlikely heroes. Benson plays her with cheerful sincerity, making Barbie's optimism and determination genuinely charming rather than cloying. Her intelligence, demonstrated when she ingeniously extracts information from Ken, subverts any expectation of the character as merely decorative. Timothy Dalton as Mr. Pricklepants Timothy Dalton, the former James Bond, voiced Mr. Pricklepants, a hedgehog toy from Bonnie's room who takes the theatrical arts with absolute seriousness. Dalton delivered the role with magnificent gravity. Every line reading infused with the full dignity of a Shakespearean actor, making the contrast between the character's self-importance and his toy hedgehog appearance endlessly amusing. His delivery of even mundane observations, as though announcing profound dramatic truths, is a comedy of pure commitment. Kristen Schaal as Trixie Kristen Schaal, whose distinctively idiosyncratic comic voice had made her a rising star in American comedy, brought Trixie the Triceratops to life with warm eccentricity. Trixie is enthusiastic, slightly chaotic, and utterly lovable, and Schaal's naturally offbeat delivery made her an instant favourite among Bonnie's toys. The character's brief but memorable appearances suggested a rich inner life, and Schaal made every line feel spontaneous. Bonnie Hunt as Dolly and Jeff Garlin as Buttercup Bonnie Hunt voiced Dolly, the rag doll who functions as something of an authority figure among Bonnie's toys, measured, sensible and quietly warm. Hunt's naturally grounded presence gave Dolly an air of calm competence. Jeff Garlin, known for his improvisational comedy work, voiced Buttercup, the deceptively gentle unicorn whose tough-sounding gruffness is played entirely for laughs. The gap between a unicorn's expected sweetness and the no-nonsense voice coming out of him is a joke that lands every single time. Whoopi Goldberg as Stretch Whoopi Goldberg lent her iconic voice to Stretch, a rubbery purple octopus toy who serves as one of Lotso's lieutenants at Sunnyside. Goldberg brought cool menace to the role, making Stretch appropriately intimidating without overdoing the villainy. She is a follower rather than a true believer, which gives the character a useful ambiguity. Supporting and additional cast the supporting ensemble rounds out the film beautifully. John Morris reprised his role as Andy, the teenage boy whose imminent departure for college sets the entire story in motion. Laurie Metcalf returned as Andy's mom, giving the small but pivotal role the same quiet emotional resonance she had brought to it throughout the series. Emily Hahn voiced Bonnie, the imaginative little girl who becomes the toy's new owner, her childlike enthusiasm anchoring the film's hopeful final act. Lee Ermey reprised Sarge for what would be his final voice role in the franchise before his passing in 2018. Richard Kind voiced Bookworm, the bespectacled antagonist ally who catalogues Sunnyside's toy inventory. Teddy Newton voiced the chatter telephone who delivers crucial information to Woody in a scene of genuine suspense. Bud Luckey, who served as both a Pixar animator and voice actor, gave Chuckles the Clown a melancholy dignity that made the backstory sequence one of the film's most unexpectedly moving passages. Jack Angel voiced Chunk, Jan Rabson voiced Sparks, and John Seigan voiced Twitch, three of Lotso's enforcers who collectively created an atmosphere of menace at Sunnyside. Eric Von Detten made a brief reappearance as Sid, Andy's destructive neighbour from the original film, now working as a garbage collector, a clever cameo that rewards long-time fans. The three peas in a pod were voiced by Charlie Bright, Amber Kroner and Brianna Maiwand, bringing an infectious cheerfulness to Bonnie's toy collection. The ensemble as a whole, what makes the voice cast of Toy Story 3 remarkable is not any single performance, but rather the cumulative effect of so many talented actors inhabiting the same world for so many years. The returning players had an ease with their characters that no amount of new casting could replicate, a naturalness that comes only from time and familiarity. And the new additions, from Beatty's quietly devastating Lotso to Keaton's gloriously self-serious Ken, integrated seamlessly into an ensemble that had been carefully built across 2 previous films. Together, they produced a film whose emotional power derived not from spectacle, but from character, from the particular way a voice can make a toy feel genuinely alive. Toy Story 3, 2010. Production, release and reception. A comprehensive account production development and pre-production the road to Toy Story 3 was not a straight one. Its origins lie not in a creative decision made at Pixar, but rather in a corporate dispute that threatened to tear the franchise away from its creators entirely. Understanding that history is essential to understanding why the film that eventually reached audiences in June 2010 was so different and so much better than what might have been. Under the terms of Pixar Animation Studios' initial 7-film deal with the Walt Disney Company, all characters created by Pixar for their films were owned and controlled by Disney. Furthermore, Disney retained the rights to produce sequels to all Pixar films up to and including Cars, though Pixar held the right of first refusal to work on those sequels. This arrangement, conceived in an era of relative goodwill between the 2 companies, became a source of enormous tension as the relationship between Disney chairman Michael Eisner and Pixar CEO Steve Jobs deteriorated through the early 2000s. In 2004, when the contentious negotiations between the 2 companies made a split appear increasingly likely, Eisner put plans in motion to produce Toy Story 3 at a new Disney studio called Circle 7 Animation. The project was slated for a theatrical release sometime in spring 2008. Tim Allen, the voice of Buzz Lightyear, had indicated a willingness to return even if Pixar was not on board. Bradley Raymond, who had previously directed Disney's direct-to-video sequels, including The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 and The Lion King 1.5, was hired to direct the Circle 7 version of the film. Multiple scripts were developed during this period, each taking the franchise in entirely different directions. Among the scripts under consideration was one from Teacher's Pet screenwriters Bill and Cherry Steinkellner. Their concept involved Andy and his toys, Woody, Buzz, Ham, Rex, Slinky, Mr. Potato Head, Jessie and Bullseye, visiting his grandmother's house for the night while his room was being remodelled. In this version, a set of Andy's toys and 2 new characters named Hee and Gladiola attempt to solve a whodunit-style murder mystery as someone steals the toys one by one. Though the script was ultimately rejected as the basis for the 3rd film, Disney was sufficiently impressed with it that the version was reportedly considered for a possible 4th instalment. The final version of the Circle 7 script was written by Meet the Parents screenwriter Jim Hertzfeld. This draft focused on a malfunctioning Buzz Lightyear being shipped by the other toys to the factory in Taiwan, where he was built, called Waka Waka. While researching online, the toys discover that many more Buzz Lightyear toys are malfunctioning around the world, and the company has issued a massive recall. Fearing Buzz's destruction, a group of Andy's toys, Woody, Rex, Slinky, Mr. Potato Head, Ham, Jessie and Bullseye ship themselves to Taiwan to rescue him. In Taiwan, Buzz encounters other recalled toys from around the world, including Rosie, a warm, cosy toy, and Jade, a leggy doll in an evening gown. He also meets a new Star Command action figure intended to be his replacement, named Dax Blastar, along with Dax's accessory pet cat, Comet. None of this material would ever reach the screen. In January 2006, Disney acquired Pixar in a landmark deal that placed Pixar chiefs Edwin Catmull and John Lasseter in charge of all Disney animation. Shortly thereafter, Circle 7 Animation was shut down and its alternate version of Toy Story 3 was cancelled. The following month, Disney CEO Robert Iger confirmed that Disney was in the process of transferring the production to Pixar, where it belonged. The studio's creative brain trust, which included John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter and Lee Unkrich, had carried their own idea around for years. In an extraordinary piece of production history, they retreated to the same cabin where they had first pitched Toy Story years earlier to develop it. Almost immediately, they discarded their initial idea after concluding it was not good enough. Unable to produce anything of substance the first day, they watched the first 2 films again. The next day, a new story began to take shape. Andrew Stanton then wrote a treatment for what would become the film audiences eventually saw. From the very beginning, the Pixar team made a deliberate decision not to look at anything produced by Circle 7, as Unkrich explained. Not out of spite, but we wanted to start fresh and not be influenced by what they'd done. We didn't look at any of the work they'd done. We really didn't want to know anything about it. The final film shares no creative DNA with the Circle 7 scripts, emerging instead from a completely original conception developed collaboratively by Pixar's most senior creatives. In February 2007, Lasseter announced Unkrich, who had edited the first 2 films and co-directed Toy Story 2, as the sole director of the 3rd film, while Lasseter himself was busy directing Cars 2. Michael Arndt, who had recently won an Academy Award for his Little Miss Sunshine screenplay, was announced as screenwriter. A tentative release date of 2010 was also announced. The film's central premise that Andy Davis, now a teenager, is going to college and his toys end up accidentally donated to a daycare centre, was reported in February 2008. Unkrich, who had been working with Arndt and story development artists since the middle of 2006, spoke candidly about the pressure he felt. He was determined to avoid creating the first dud for Pixar, a studio that had at that point achieved an extraordinary streak of critical and commercial successes. The weight of that legacy shaped every creative decision made during the film's long development process. An important and often overlooked dimension of the pre-production process involved Pixar's confrontation with its own technological past. When the studio revisited its work from the original Toy Story during the initial development stages of the 3rd film, they found that while they could open the old computer files for the animated 3D models, error messages prevented them from actually editing the files. This forced the team to recreate all of the original character models from scratch, a laborious undertaking that also provided an opportunity to update them with the considerably more sophisticated technology Pixar had developed over the 15 years since the original film. The approach Pixar took to recruiting its returning cast was unusually cinematic. Rather than simply sending Tom Hanks, Tim Allen and John Ratzenberger scripts to consider, Pixar showed them a complete story reel of the film in a theatre setting. The reel was constructed from moving storyboards with pre-recorded voices, sound effects and music, essentially an animated rough cut. When the preview concluded, all 3 actors signed on without hesitation. Tom Hanks was paid $15 million for his involvement, at the time the highest salary ever received by a voice actor. Filming for a film produced entirely through computer animation, the notion of filming functions differently than it does in live action. But the research and design processes that inform the visual world of a Pixar production are no less rigorous, and in some cases, considerably more physically demanding than those undertaken by conventional film crews. In 2007, Pixar artists embarked on several field trips to a local landfill and incinerator in Northern California to create the setting of the film's climactic sequence. As Unkrich explained in an NPR interview, "We visited the Altamont dump and went to a number of other landfills." While Pixar artists had visited similar facilities previously when developing WALL-E, that earlier experience had been qualitatively different. In WALL-E, the dump environment was not trying to kill the eponymous robot. For Toy Story 3, the creative team was trying to construct the toy equivalent of Dante's Inferno, a grim landscape of suffering and annihilation. The goal was not to accurately depict a real waste management facility, but rather to discover the visual cues needed to create a facility that was believable but more dramatic than a real one. Production designer Bob Pauly joked that the Ratatouille crew had gotten the better deal, since they flew to Paris and ate in French restaurants for their research, while the Toy Story 3 crew did not leave Northern California and was instead consigned to wandering around the local garbage dump. The complexity of the incinerator and junkyard sequences, in which mountains of junk cascade, a conveyor belt carries the toys toward a furnace, and an enormous industrial claw descends from above, required more than a year and a half of dedicated research and development to create the simulation systems needed to bring them to life. The sheer volume of moving debris, the behaviour of the conveyor belt mechanism, the heat distortion rising from the incinerator. Each of these visual elements demanded custom technical solutions that pushed Pixar's already formidable technological capabilities. A remarkable personal connection shaped one of the film's most beloved visual details. The film's art director, Daisuke Tsutsumi, is married to the niece of legendary Japanese director Hayao Miyazaki, specifically the niece who originally inspired the character Mei in Miyazaki's 1988 anime film My Neighbor Totoro. Given this family connection, a Totoro toy makes a brief but charming cameo appearance in Bonnie's room in Toy Story 3, a detail that delighted audiences familiar with Studio Ghibli's work and added a layer of warmth to the already affectionate texture of Bonnie's toy collection. Post-production Toy Story 3 was notable on a technical level for being the first film in cinematic history to receive a theatrical release with Dolby Surround 7.1 sound. Dolby Laboratories made this announcement during the film's production phase, and the significance of the achievement extended to the home media release as well. Unlike other films that were remixed into 7, one for Blu-ray, the Blu-ray version of Toy Story 3 featured original 7.1 audio captured during production, making it a genuine showcase for the format. The film's post-production period involved not only the final rendering and compositing of the animation, but also the assembly of the complete sound design, a critical component of any animated feature, but particularly important for a film that spans environments as varied as a sun-drenched suburban home, an artificially cheerful daycare centre, and a terrifying municipal waste facility. The sound work was substantial enough to earn the film a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Sound Editing at the 83rd Academy Awards. Post-production also encompassed the meticulous work of integrating Randy Newman's score with the completed animation. A process that, given the complex emotional register the film needed to strike at every turn, required careful calibration. The film needed to pivot from comedy to genuine terror to overwhelming emotional release across the space of 103 minutes, and Newman's score had to both lead and follow that journey. The film was also prepared for its IMAX 3D release during this period. The 3D presentation was conceived as an integral part of the theatrical experience rather than as a conversion afterthought. Though the film's director, like many filmmakers of the era, was mindful of not allowing the 3D format to overwhelm the story being told, music Randy Newman's Score Randy Newman returned to compose the score for Toy Story 3, continuing the creative partnership with Pixar that had defined the franchise from its very first frame. Newman had scored both preceding films and had been responsible for some of the most recognisable music in animated film history, including the iconic You've Got a Friend in Me that had served as the franchise's signature theme since 1995. His return to the series for the third instalment was never in doubt, And the results represent some of the most emotionally sophisticated work of his career in film scoring. The soundtrack was composed and conducted by Newman and released by Walt Disney Records on June 15, 2010, 3 days before the film's theatrical debut. The album comprises 17 tracks, blending heartfelt original songs and orchestral instrumentals that collectively underscore the film's themes of friendship, loss, growing up, and the bittersweet process of letting go. The score was recorded primarily across a series of sessions at major Los Angeles recording facilities, with a significant orchestral recording date on December 9, 2009 at Sony Studios, and additional work undertaken at Conway Recording Studios and Abbey Road Studios in London. The score was recorded and mixed by David Boucher, and Newman collaborated closely with producer Mitchell Froom on the film's original songs. The album's total runtime of approximately 56 minutes encompasses a stylistic range that mirrors the film's own emotional breadth. The orchestral score is predominantly lush and warm, infused with jazz influences that give it a playful bounce when appropriate, while allowing it to swell into something genuinely grand during the film's most emotionally charged moments. The cue, Cowboy, which accompanies the film's energetic Western fantasy opening sequence, captures the swashbuckling adventure of a child's imagination. The score cues associated with the Sunnyside daycare sequences carry an initially bright, almost institutional cheerfulness that gradually darkens as the toys discover the truth about Lotso's regime. The sequences in the incinerator room are accompanied by sparse, terrifying music that strips away all comfort and leaves the audience and the characters confronting the unthinkable. Initially, Disney released the soundtrack only as a digital download. This was the second instance in which Disney did not release the award-winning soundtrack of a Pixar film on CD, the first being Up the previous year. Intrada Records subsequently released the Toy Story 3 soundtrack on compact disc in January 2012, making the physical release available to fans who had waited for it. We Belong Together. The crown jewel of the Toy Story 3 soundtrack is We Belong Together, written, composed and performed by Newman for the film's end credits. The song is a rollicking, horn-driven composition that builds on Newman's prior contributions to the franchise, while addressing the specific emotional circumstances of the trilogy's conclusion. Its lyrics, expressing the anguish of separation and the durability of connection, are precisely calibrated to the feelings aroused by the preceding 103 minutes of film. The song plays as Ken and Barbie are revealed to have transformed Sunnyside into a genuinely welcoming environment for all the toys there, offering a note of hard-earned optimism that balances the film's more devastating emotional beats. The song was nominated for numerous Best Original Song awards from film societies and awards committees, and ultimately won the Academy Award for Best Original Song at the 83rd Academy Awards in February 2011, marking Newman's second win in that category after If I Didn't Have You from Monsters, Inc. 2001. Newman himself had been nominated for the Oscar a remarkable number of times before his first win, making each subsequent victory particularly meaningful to him and to audiences who had long felt he was overdue. The Gypsy Kings and You've Got a Friend in Me, para Buzz Español. A delightful musical discovery of the film is the Spanish-language cover of You've Got a Friend in Me, performed by the Gypsy Kings, featuring Nicolas Reyes and Tonino Baliardo. The track, credited on the soundtrack as You've Got a Friend in Me, para Buzz Español, was written, as always, by Randy Newman. It accompanies the sequence in which Buzz Lightyear is accidentally switched into his Spanish mode and immediately transforms into a passionate, flamenco-influenced romantic figure. The Gypsy Kings' propulsive, guitar-driven interpretation of Newman's original song is both genuinely thrilling as music and perfectly absurd as a comedy device, and its appearance in the film is one of the most unexpectedly joyful sequences in the entire trilogy. The track was produced by Tonino Baliardo and Nicolas Reyes. The song and the Paso double dance associated with it received a promotional television moment before the film's release, when the Gypsy Kings performed their version on Dancing with the Stars on May 11, 2010, in an episode that featured choreography by Cheryl Burke and Tony Dovolani. Other licensed songs in the film include Dreamweaver by Gary Wright and Le Freak by Chic, both of which appear in the sequence involving Ken's fashion show. A moment of gleeful anachronism that perfectly captures Ken's slightly kitsch, retro aesthetic. Toy Story 3 had its worldwide premiere on June 12, 2010 at the Taormina Film Fest in Italy. It then premiered in the United States on June 13, 2010 at the legendary El Capitan Theatre in Hollywood, California. El Capitan also hosted on June 17, 2010 a Toy Story marathon, showing all three Toy Story films together for the first time. The film went into wide release across the United States on June 18, 2010, accompanied by a simultaneous release to IMAX 3D theatres. The film was theatrically accompanied by the Pixar short film Day and Night, a visually inventive piece that focuses on what happens when an animated personification of day meets his opposite, night. The short, which blends 2D and 3D animation in a way that had rarely been seen before, was widely praised and complemented the main feature's themes of difference, friendship, and mutual respect. The marketing campaign that preceded the film's release was extensive, inventive, and, in at least one memorable instance, genuinely deceptive. Pixar designed a commercial for Lotso Huggin' Bear and formatted it to appear as though it came from an old VCR recording. The commercial was deliberately degraded with distorted sound, noise along the bottom of the screen, and flickering video, all designed to make it look like a converted recording from around 1983. A Japanese version of the commercial was also released online, with the bear renamed Little Hug Hug Bear. The campaign was successful in generating online discussion and a sense of nostalgic authenticity around a character who existed entirely as fiction. The film's first teaser trailer had been released with Up in Disney Digital 3D on May 29, 2009, more than a year before the film's premiere. On October 2, 2009, Toy Story and Toy Story 2 were re-released as a double feature in Disney Digital 3D. The first full-length trailer was attached as an exclusive sneak peek to the Toy Story double feature on October 12, 2009. A second teaser was released on February 10, 2010, followed by a second full-length trailer on February 11, which appeared in 3D showings of Alice in Wonderland and How to Train Your Dragon. On March 23, 2010, the first two Toy Story films were released separately on Blu-ray DVD combo packs, each including features related to the upcoming third film, Mattel, Thinkway Toys, and Lego were among the companies that produced toys to promote the film. Fisher-Price, a Mattel company, released a Toy Story 3 edition of its Viewmaster viewer with 21 3D images. Disney Interactive Studios produced a video game based on the film, Toy Story 3. The video game, which was released for Microsoft Windows, Xbox 360, Wii, PlayStation 3, Nintendo DS and PSP on June 15, 2010, 3 days before the film's wide release. A PlayStation 2 version was released on October 30, 2010 as part of a PS2 bundle and separately on November 2, 2010. The film also received prominent product placement and cross-promotional coverage during Apple's iPhone OS 4 event on April 8, 2010, when Steve Jobs demonstrated a Toy Story 3 themed iAd written in HTML5. The film was promoted with airings of the first and second movies on several television channels in the weeks preceding the release, including Disney XD and ABC Family. The film's Academy Awards campaign proved to be as bold as anything in the marketing surrounding its theatrical run. The Not Since Oscar campaign drew considerable attention, consisting of posters featuring characters from the film while comparing Toy Story 3 to previous Academy Award winners, including The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Shakespeare in Love and Titanic. Walt Disney Studios chairman Rich Ross made no secret of the campaign's ambition. They were pursuing the Best Picture win, not merely the Best Animated Feature award. The Hollywood Reporter gave the campaign a Bronze Award in its Key Art Awards for 2011, in its Key Art Awards for 2011. Home media Toy Story 3 was released by Walt Disney Entertainment in North America on November 2, 2010, in a standard DVD edition, a 2-disc Blu-ray disc and a 4-disc Blu-ray DVD digital copy combo pack. The release packages included behind-the-scenes features along with a sneak peek teaser for Cars 2. A 10-disc Toy Story Trilogy Blu-ray box set arrived on store shelves on the same day. A 3D version of the Blu-ray was released in North America on November 1, 2011. The film was subsequently released on 4K UHD Blu-ray on June 4, 2019. The home media performance of the film was as remarkable as its theatrical run. In its first week of release, November 2 to 7, 2010, Toy Story 3 sold 3,859,736 units, equivalent to 73,096,452 in revenue, ranking number 1 for the week and immediately becoming the best-selling animated film of 2010 in units sold, surpassing How to Train Your Dragon. As of July 18, 2012, the film had sold 10,911,701 units, totaling 185,924,247. It became the best-selling DVD of 2010 in units sold, though in sales revenue it ranked second behind Avatar. It also sold approximately 4 million Blu-ray units, ranking as the 4th best-selling film of 2010 on that format. In the United Kingdom, Toy Story 3 broke the record for the largest first day ever for an animated feature in home media sales on both DVD and Blu-ray. Additionally, on the first day of its iTunes release, it immediately became the most downloaded Disney film ever released on that platform, a remarkable testament to the breadth of the film's audience and the loyalty of fans who wanted to own it in every available format. Reception box office Toy Story 3 earned $415 million in the United States and Canada and $652 million in other countries for a worldwide total of $1.067 billion, making it the highest grossing animated film of all time at that point, a record it held until Frozen surpassed it in 2014. It was also the highest grossing film of 2010, both in North America and worldwide, and at the time of its release, it stood as the 4th highest grossing film in cinematic history. It was the first animated film ever to reach $1 billion at the worldwide box office. And it remained Pixar's highest grossing film until Incredibles 2 surpassed it in 2018. On its opening day of June 18, 2010, Toy Story 3 earned $41.1 million from 4,028 theatres, including $4 million from midnight shows at approximately 1,500 theatres. This set an opening day record for an animated film, though the record was later surpassed by Minions and subsequently by Finding Dory. During its opening weekend, the film topped the North American box office with $110.3 million. This figure set an opening weekend record among Pixar films, later surpassed by Finding Dory. Among films released in the month of June, later surpassed by Man of Steel and then Jurassic World, and among G-rated films, later surpassed by Toy Story 4. It also represented the 2nd largest opening weekend among animated films and the 4th largest opening weekend among all 2010 films. The film's per-venue average of $27, $3.85 was the 2nd highest ever recorded for a G-rated film and the 3rd highest for an animated feature. Its opening week gross, Friday through Thursday, of $167. $6 million was the 2nd largest among animated films at that time, the 2nd largest among 2010 films, and the 23rd largest of all time. It topped the North American box office for 2 consecutive weekends. On August 27, 2010, its 71st day of release, Toy Story 3 surpassed the $1 billion mark at the worldwide box office, becoming the third Disney film, the second Disney distributed film of 2010 after Alice in Wonderland, the first animated film and only the seventh film in all of cinematic history to achieve that milestone. Box Office Mojo estimated that the film sold over 52 million tickets in the United States alone, a staggering figure that speaks to the breadth of its appeal across all demographic groups. Internationally, the film's performance was equally extraordinary. It topped the box office outside North America 3 times in its first, second and sixth weekends, with the sixth being its largest. Its highest grossing international market after North America was Japan, where it earned $126.7 million, making it the second highest grossing American animated feature in that country behind Finding Nemo. The United Kingdom and Ireland combined for $73.8 million, $116.6 million, and making Toy Story 3 the 9th highest grossing film in UK history. Mexico contributed $59.4 million, where it stood as the second highest grossing film ever. The film set opening weekend records for animated films in Ecuador, Colombia, Mexico, China, Argentina, Hong Kong, Spain and the UK. Its top international markets were the United Kingdom, $115.4 million, Australia $32.8 million, and Brazil $23.6 million. The film's production budget of $200 million made it one of the most expensive films ever made at the time of its release. Against that investment, a worldwide gross of $1. $67 billion represented an extraordinary return, a ratio of profitability that few films of any genre or budget level have matched. Critical response Toy Story 3 received near unanimous praise from film critics upon its release, and its critical standing has only deepened in the years since. On the review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 98% based on 309 reviews, with an average rating of 8.9 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, deftly blending comedy, adventure and honest emotion, Toy Story 3 is a rare second sequel that really works. On Metacritic, which assigns a normalised score to reviews, the film received a score of 92 out of 100 based on 39 critics, a rating the site classifies as indicating universal acclaim. Time magazine named Toy Story 3 the best film of 2010. In 2011, Time also ranked the film at number 11 on its list of the 25 all-time best animated films, placing it alongside the most celebrated works in the history of the medium. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale, matching the score given to the original Toy Story and falling just below the A earned by Toy Story 2. The critical response engaged with the film on multiple levels simultaneously. Reviewers praised it as a superbly crafted entertainment, funny, exciting, beautifully animated, but they also recognised it as something considerably more ambitious, a meditation on loss, impermanence and the way love survives change. A.O. Scott of the New York Times captured this double nature with particular eloquence, writing that this film, and the 3-part, 15-year epic it concluded, about the adventures of a bunch of silly plastic junk, turns out also to be a long, melancholy meditation on loss, impermanence and the passage of time. Roger Moore of the Orlando Sentinel, who awarded the film 3.5 out of 4 stars, described it as dazzling, scary and sentimental, and called it a dark and emotional conclusion to the film series that made Pixar famous. His phrasing, dark and emotional conclusion, captured the film's willingness to go to places that animated films rarely visit, particularly in the incinerator sequence, which was widely noted as among the most genuinely frightening and emotionally devastating passages in any animated film aimed at a family audience. Michael Rechtschaffen, writing for The Hollywood Reporter, that offered a positive review, describing Woody, Buzz and their companions as making a thoroughly engaging, emotionally satisfying return. Mark Kermode of the BBC gave the film and the series an enthusiastic appraisal, giving particular praise to its ability to be enjoyed simultaneously and equally by both adults and children, going so far as to state that the Toy Story trilogy had become the best movie trilogy of all time. A bold claim that nonetheless resonated with many critics and audiences who had watched the series grow with them over 15 years. Claudia Puig, writing for USA Today, awarded the film a complete 4 stars, calling it the best of the 3 and describing it as everything a movie should be. Hilarious, touching, exciting and clever. This verdict, that the 3rd instalment was not merely a worthy continuation, but actually the finest entry in a distinguished series, was widely shared among reviewers and contributed to the sense of cultural occasion surrounding the film's release. Roger Ebert, one of the most influential film critics of his era, praised the film with 3 out of 4 stars, though his review was characteristically precise about what he felt were its strengths and its limits. He described it as a jolly slapstick comedy, lacking the almost eerie humanity that infused the earlier Toy Story sagas, and happier with action and jokes than with characters and emotions. Ebert's was a measured, nuanced appreciation rather than unqualified rapture, and it stood in contrast to many of the more effusive reviews the film received. He did, however, take the opportunity to express his ongoing reservations about 3D as a format. Toy Story 3 was one of the best reviewed films of 2010 by virtually every metric used to measure critical consensus. Rotten Tomatoes ranked it the best reviewed film of the year across all genres and budgets. Metacritic placed it 2nd for the year, behind The Social Network. Film critic Armand White was widely criticised for contributing one of the few negative reviews, which was notable for preventing the film from achieving a perfect 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes. White's review described the nearly universally acclaimed film as essentially a board game that only the brainwashed will buy into, and dismissed the series as fit only for non-thinking children and adults. The review was treated by many of White's critics as further evidence of a pattern of contrarianism. Roger Ebert himself had previously written about White's critical record at some length. The critical community's response to White's review was itself a cultural moment, illustrating just how widely and deeply the film had been embraced. Cahiers du Cinéma, the venerable French film journal whose endorsement carries special weight, placed Toy Story 3 at 4th on its list of the 10 best films of 2010. A remarkable placement for an American animated family film in one of world cinema's most intellectually serious publications. The National Board of Review and the American Film Institute both named the film one of the 10 best films of 2010, while the National Board of Review also presented it with its Best Animated Film Award. The screenplay, written by Michael Arndt, received particular attention from critics and industry observers. In 2018, IndieWire writers ranked it as the 10th best American screenplay of the 21st century, an extraordinary recognition that placed it in the company of the most formally accomplished and emotionally resonant writing in contemporary American cinema. In December 2021, the Writers Guild of America listed the screenplay at number 44 on their 101 greatest screenplays of the 21st century so far. In 2025, the film Hate appeared on the New York Times list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century, as voted by readers, finishing at number 138. Awards and accolades. The film received 5 nominations at the 83rd Academy Awards, winning 2. It won Best Animated Feature, confirming what critics had already been saying. It was the finest animated film of its year by a considerable margin, and Best Original Song for Randy Newman's We Belong Together. Its other 3 nominations were for Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound Editing. The Best Picture nomination was historically significant. It made Toy Story 3 only the 3rd animated film ever nominated in that category. after Beauty and the Beast, 1991, and Up, 2009. And the most recent such nomination to date, the Best Animated Feature win, was in many respects formality. The film had dominated the Animated Feature Awards circuit throughout the season. But the Best Picture nomination was a genuine cultural statement, and Walt Disney Studios' decision to campaign for it openly rather than simply accepting the Animated Feature Consolation Prize represented a moment of institutional ambition that the industry noted with interest. Beyond the Academy Awards, the film accumulated an extraordinary range of recognitions. At the 64th British Academy Film Awards, it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Special Visual Effects, and won Best Animated Film. It received 3 nominations at the 38th Annie Awards. It was nominated for 5 Critics' Choice Movie Awards, winning 1, and for a Golden Globe Award for Best Animated Feature Film, which it won. The total accolade count across its awards season run amounted to 42 wins from 97 nominations, a record of recognition that confirmed its standing not just as the finest animated film of 2010, but as one of the most admired films of any kind produced during that period. The film's Oscar campaign produced one of the most discussed and analysed pieces of awards season marketing in recent memory. The Not Since poster campaign explicitly invited comparison between Toy Story 3 and multiple Best Picture winners across the decades of Academy Award history, positioning an animated sequel as the equal of films that had long been considered the apex of American filmmaking. The boldness of that campaign and the degree to which it was ultimately vindicated by the film's performance in the ceremony reflected the genuine confidence that everyone involved with the film had in what they had made. Legacy and long-term standing in the years since its release, Toy Story 3 has only grown in critical and cultural stature. What began as an extraordinary achievement in animated filmmaking has come to be regarded as one of the defining cultural artefacts of its era, a work that spoke to multiple generations simultaneously, addressing children's fears about being left behind while articulating adults' grief about the passage of time and the bittersweet necessity of letting go. The film's incinerator sequence, in which the toys hold hands as they prepare to meet an apparently inevitable end, has been discussed at length in critical writing as an extraordinary piece of filmmaking, not merely for what it depicts, but for the courage it demonstrates in following its characters to a genuinely dark place and staying there long enough for the emotional reality to fully land. The arrival of the rescue, in the form of the 3 squeezed toy aliens operating an industrial claw, is one of the most jubilantly cathartic moments in the franchise's history, and it works precisely because the film has made the preceding despair feel fully real. The final sequence, in which Andy gives his toys to Bonnie and plays with them one last time before leaving for college, is cited by critics and audiences alike as among the most emotionally overwhelming passages in the history of animated film. The scene works on multiple levels, as a simple story of a teenager's difficult but loving act of letting go, and as a broader meditation on childhood itself, on the relationships between children and their most beloved objects, and on the way love survives and transcends loss. That a story about plastic toys could produce this depth of emotional response is a testament to the 15 years of patient, brilliant character development that the franchise's creators invested in these figures before bringing them to this moment. Toy Story 3 stands in the final analysis not merely as the finest entry in an already distinguished trilogy, but as one of the great achievements in the history of animated cinema, and on its own terms, as one of the great achievements in American filmmaking in the first decade of the 21st century. Its box office records, its critical acclaim, its awards recognition, and the extraordinary loyalty of its audience are all measures of the same fundamental reality. That Pixar, with this film, had created something that would endure, brimming with wonderful satire and lump-in-the-throat nostalgia, the final Toy Story film provides a fitting end to a classic trilogy. As always, the generous gang at Pixar Films offer excellent value, starting with the usual bonus of an animated short as a curtain raiser for the feature. In this case, it's the delightful 5-minute Day and Night, directed by Teddy Newton, who worked on The Incredibles, Ratatouille and the magnificent Pixar short Presto, which accompanied Wall-E. Two amorphous, asexual creatures like cartoon ghosts confront each other against a flat black background. One, it transpires, is the surly night, the other the cheerful day. Within the outline of each two-dimensional figure, we're shown 3D images of the world in sunlight and moonlight, of Las Vegas neon-lit by night and under blue skies by day. The pair mime their challenges and at the end come to accept their happy complementary roles. The charming, semi-abstract whimsicality of Day and Night puts us in the right mood to encounter for the third time, and in unobtrusive 3D, the toys we first met in little Andy's nursery back in 1995. In that early episode, which began a new classic era of animation, the devoted cowboy Woody, voiced by Tom Hanks, representative of the old frontier, is challenged for supremacy by the astronaut Buzz Lightyear, Tim Allen, boastfully confident avatar of the boldly going new frontier who doesn't believe he's a toy. Buzz Aldrin, the second man to set foot on the moon, once threatened to sue Disney over the film, but eventually thought better of it. In the even better Toy Story 2, 1999, we have the theme about kids getting tired of their early nursery favourites, and there is some remarkable satire when Woody is kidnapped by a ruthless dealer in vintage toys and his mates come to the rescue. The truly wonderful Toy Story 3 completes a trilogy. It's set on the eve of the 17-year-old Andy's departure for college and sees him clearing his room for his little sister. Andy decides to take Woody with him and put the other toys in the attic. But the bags get confused. All except Woody are sent to the Sunnyside Daycare Centre, which they regard as total rejection. This place is ruled over by the apparently benevolent, strawberry-scented Lotso bear, Ned Beatty, who's accompanied by the mute Big Baby, and the tone suddenly gets seriously dark in the manner of Dead of Night and Child's Play, where the dolls are possessed by evil spirits. Lotso, a tragic comic figure, has become an emotionally twisted sadist as a consequence of thinking himself abandoned. He's turned the daycare centre into a penitentiary run by the convicts, a parody of a Hollywood prison film, as chilling as Dickens's Dotheboys Hall or Pinocchio's Pleasure Island. Also present at Sunnyside and cleverly used are a reunited Barbie and Ken, the former very amusingly becoming a liberated woman, recognising the preening Ken's limitations and giving a speech reminiscent of the Founding Fathers. The dogged Woody comes to the rescue, but before all is resolved, there are chases and cliff-hanging escapes, and Buzz is first reprogrammed as a militarist and then as a dashing Spanish-speaking gallant. The earlier films bring lumps to the throat by evincing a conventional nostalgia for childhood, but without resorting to characteristic Disney-esque sentimentality. Toy Story 3 achieves the same results by showing Andy moving towards an emotional maturity. In the course of the film, Andy and his toys develop in different ways as he passes on to a further stage in his life, understanding that his old, somewhat battered, deeply faithful companions are best cared for by a younger generation. It is a reflection of the hold that the Old West still has in American life, that Woody should be the token toy he takes along with him, rather more endearing to me than Sebastian Flight taking his teddy bear Aloysius with him to Oxford in Brideshead Revisited. Seeing Toy Story 3 and Christopher Nolan's Inception within 48 hours of each other was to be made aware of two things. First, that there are good reasons for being alive in these dismal days of the second decade of the 21st century. Second, there are areas of popular culture where whatever is the diametric opposite of dumbing down is at work. and that those who respect the intelligence and tastes of the general public are being rewarded for their confidence. On a slightly different but not dissimilar note, it was pleasing to see at the end of Toy Story 3's final credits that 72 babies were born to members of the production team while the film was being made. Andy outgrows his anthropomorphic amigos Buzz and Woody in Toy Story 3, the franchise's third and final installment. And as it turns out, 15 years after launching the computer-animated Toon Revolution, Pixar has outgrown them too. Whereas Toy Story 2 treated awards to a character-based sequel that handily justified its existence, this tertiary adventure delivers welcome yet non-essential fun, landing well after its creators have grown up and succeeded toying with more sophisticated stories. Nevertheless, the stereoscopic 3D release, which reportedly outtested all of Pixar's previous efforts, should dominate summer playdates. From the outset, we can sense different hands at the reins. Like the original, Pick opens with 6-year-old Andy acting out wild narratives for Woody, Tom Hanks, Buzz Lightyear, Tim Allen and the gang. Only this time, director Lee Unkrich, who came up through Pixar's editorial department and handled co-helming duties on Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc. and Finding Nemo plunges us into Andy's imagination, which follows childhood logic but looks more like a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. Andy's toys are fiercely loyal to their owner, with such playtime being their raison d'etre. Though the Toy Story movies have long hinged on a rather arbitrary notion of what qualifies as the healthy treatment of toys. Home videos advance us through a dozen years, disposing of Bo Peep and a few other key players along the way. It's gutsy to see Pixar stripping back its ensemble. The Green Army men effectively desert rather than be donated, in contrast to the unwieldy, ever-growing ensembles of most Toon sequels, though Disney Consumer Products has plenty of new characters to be excited about. Now 18, Andy is packing up for college. Clearly oblivious to the Roundup gang's value, he tosses all but Woody into a garbage bag, which his mum mistakes for trash and takes out to the curb. So begins a convoluted adventure that leads the toys to Sunnyside Daycare Centre, which at first appears to be an improvement. The toys haven't been played with in ages, and here they'll get daily attention. Plus, they'll have plenty of new friends, including Big Baby and a dream house-dwelling Ken, Michael Keaton. But there's a dark side to Sunnyside, which is overseen by a folksy, strawberry-scented pink plush named Lotso Huggin' Bear, Ned Beatty. Lotso lost his owner years ago, and now he runs the place like a prison. Where the first two Toy Story installments served as rescue movies, with characters nobly putting themselves in danger to save their friends from harm, this one instead follows the jailbreak genre. Take a step back, and the film seems to be about the idea of toys coming to terms with being outgrown by their owners. However, everyone but Woody seems perfectly fine with being donated at the outset. And Jessie's song already addressed such abandonment issues quite poignantly in the second movie. As character arcs go, this one doesn't seem particularly compelling. Woody must convince the others to break out of Sunnyside and find their way back to Andy's attic, where they can wait until he needs them again. As delusional thinking goes, this tops even fresh out of the box Buzz Lightyear's identity issues. Pixar has essentially set an impossible standard for itself, having previously delivered the rare sequel that improves on the original, then followed that up with a run of exceptional work. This latest script, written by Little Miss Sunshine's Michael Arndt from a story by John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton and Unkrich, feels more gag-driven than the studio's previous efforts. Essentially borrowing a page from DreamWorks animation, chasing snappy humour over heart-on-their-sleeve sentimentality, within a few months of DreamWorks going the Pixar route with the sincere storytelling of How to Train Your Dragon. It's worth remembering that former Disney CEO Michael Eisner once intended to make Toy Story 3 sans Pixar involvement, when relations between the two studios broke down in 2004. The visuals look gorgeous as ever, making classy use of 3D to enhance the drama while staying true to the original aesthetic. Humans are notably improved, especially young Bonnie, Emily Hahn, who takes Woody home at one point and introduces him to the film's most appealing new characters, including Shakespearean hedgehog Mr. Pricklepants, Timothy Dalton, whose perf amusingly suggests another level of split personality delusion among toys, and scatterbrained Triceratops Trixie, Kristen Schaal. The latter bodes well for Rex's romantic prospects, which seem far better than Barbie's. Since Keaton plays Ken as an effeminate closet case, imagine the outcry had Pixar attempted an equivalent racial caricature. But the pic wants laughs, and it's willing to dilute the respect Lasseter showed this borderline absurd world to get them, goosing ords with punchline-driven cutting, pop song montages and throwaway silliness. Surely kids could have done without the bathroom humour, though much of the comedy takes the high road, such as an inspired bit in which Buzz is accidentally switched to Spanish language mode. But Toy Story 3 is best when it's being serious, and the final 15-minute stretch. From the moment the toys are dumped at a landfill through the tear-jerking finale, pays off feelings ords invested 15 years ago. Still, there's no reason these scenes couldn't have come 80 minutes earlier. Had the toys not escaped their first brush with the garbage truck, which would have left room for the film to explore the curious ontology of being a toy after escaping such a near-death experience, Pick is preceded by Teddy Newton's visionary 6-minute short, Day and Night, an invigorating blend of stereoscopic CG visuals and old-school hand-drawn animation. Set against a black background, two characters serve as windows to opposite halves of the day. Their playfully layered dance of sound and spectacle, suggesting exciting creative directions Pixar could explore in the future. After years of being stowed in Andy's toy chest, the time has finally come for Woody, Hanks, Buzz, Alan and friends to move on. But after they're welcomed to Sunnyside Daycare Centre by the kindly Lotso huggin' bear, Beatty, they realise this seeming toys paradise is actually something closer to hell. How adult can a commercial Favela movie be pushed before it starts alienating its core audience? Lay on too many mature pop culture references, see Shark Tale's emphasis on mafia movie clichés, and you leave the smaller ones fidgeting. Go too dark, and that theatre will be awash with trauma-induced tears. Works the other way too. Play it too young, and adult eyes glaze. It's a fine balance. And Pixar remains the master of that particular tightrope walk. The studio certainly set the delicate course with Toy Story, a movie which not only contrasted the glee of imaginative play with the terrors of plaything torture, but which, crucially, imagined its anthropomorphized, secret life living protagonists as adults just doing a job, the child Andy being their boss. While audience children could simply enjoy the toys coming to life and having adventures, the wage-slave grown-ups could, among other things, relate to the workplace anxiety generated by an impressive new employee in the first film, or the idea of being promoted to somewhere where you think you'll be more valued, but where the reality is you'll no longer be doing the very thing you love most about your job in the second. Continuing the theme, the third Toy Story is very much a movie about retirement. In Disney Digital 3D, the setup has a 17-year-old Andy preparing to leave for college, his few remaining favourite toys, oddly after all these years still including a Mrs. Potato Head, but hey, we ain't judging, making desperate Woody corralled gambits for his attention. The sight, in the first few minutes, of the ever-determined cowboy doll clinging on to an old mobile phone as he listens to Andy's confused hellos is just one of several near-heartbreaking moments. Just to give you an idea, we learn only a few minutes later that Woody's longtime girlfriend, Bo Peep, is one of the many toys Andy's long since chucked out. Naturally, Woody refuses to accept his destiny, which as the other survivors, the Potato Heads, Rex, Ham, Jessie, Slinky, Bullseye, the alien triplets and Buzz point out, will lead them either to the attic, a daycare centre or the dreaded trash, and via the wonderful quick-beat action plot contortions that characterised both previous Toy Stories, miss a single second at your peril. It's to daycare they go, to a place with the blandly sinister name of Sunnyside, appropriately making it sound as much like an old people's home as a nursery. The resulting caper is, like its predecessor, a paragon of good sequel making. It moves the story on, take note, Iron Man 2 writers, while keeping its characters and plotting comfortingly familiar. And it brings in familiar and it brings in new characters without neglecting the originals. You could criticise it for merely offering a new variation on the previous films. Displaced toys require rescue structure. But the reality is that the riffs on Toy Stories 1 and 2 prove joyous. Woody's to the rescue whistle for faithful Dogbuster this time yields a greying, sagging hound who merely flops exhaustedly to the floor. A third encounter with a deluded Buzz Lightyear is spiced with a hilarious dash of Latin flavour. The bitter, twisted toy bad guy who initially appears friendly, a flashback to another plaything's cruel abandonment, a desperate climactic chase in a setting that would dwarf even a full-grown human in the last movie, An Airport. In this movie, with equal aptness, a trash processing facility. Maybe it is ticking boxes, but each tick comes with its own fresh twist. The latter in particular offers up a scene of such intense, exquisite end-of-the-line poignancy, also the scariest moment of the whole series, that it deserves comparison with Snow White's terrified forest flight or the shooting of Bambi's mother. Without giving too much away, you could call it this trilogy's Mount Doom sequence. But hey, don't worry, there's still plenty of laughs. A Prison Break movie structure is deftly constructed around the toys trapped in daycare predicament. Sunnyside is a place of ruin and despair. Gravely intones Timothy Dalton's thespianic lederhosen-wearing hedgehog, Mr. Pricklepants, leading to one supremely funny escape plan montage narrated by a Fisher-Price phone and starring a screeching, cymbal-crashing, mad-eye-popping monkey. Elsewhere we have new star Ken, Michael Keaton, shuffling stiffly around in fey poses and complaining that no one appreciates clothes here, while repeatedly insisting he's not a girl's toy. Just as the action comes thick and fast, the wisecracks and visual gags are high volume and high hit rate. Combined with the kind of state-of-the-art artistry we now take for granted with Pixar. Interestingly restrained when it comes to the main characters, thus keeping consistency with the previous films. They ensure that every last frame counts, each a firework burst of fine detail. In all likelihood, though, it won't be the rendering of Lotso Huggin' Bear's plush puce fur or Ham's drier sides that will earn this Pixar its sure plaudits. It'll be its powerful tenderness as a fond farewell to some of cinema's best-drawn characters. 11 years after the events of Toy Story 2, Woody, Buzz and company are back at it again. This time, they are facing their worst fear. Their owner, Andy, is now moving off to college, and his mum demands that he choose which ones go to the attic, which ones to the trash, and which ones join him at school. After a slight mix-up, the crew winds up at Sunnyside Daycare Centre, where they meet a bunch of toys who invite them in with friendly faces, but really are not all what they seem. The standout is Ken, Michael Keaton, whose fashion obsession and personality steals every scene. I won't reveal more than that for the story, but let me be honest with you. Toy Story 3 made me tear up. While I would say it's the funniest of the Toy Story franchise, it is also the darkest. If you have younger children, keep in mind that there are some intense scenes that may frighten them. Also, I will mention that out of the whole series, Toy Story 3 is probably my favourite. It is a threequel that stands strongly along its predecessors, and giving it a nice long 11 years probably didn't hurt. Pixar wrote an amazing story for their flagship movie characters. Woody, Buzz and the other toys have never been better. The movie's theme is not pretty though. The fear of abandonment runs strongly throughout, and while the film is light-hearted at times, it makes you wonder what will really happen to these characters. But if you had any concern about the third entry falling behind those that came before it, let me ask you one question. Would you ever doubt Pixar? No, I didn't think so. Toy Story 3 is a great movie. It's an amazing movie. It is a movie I'm proud to review. It is the more than fitting end to what I would consider the greatest trilogy of all time. All good things must come to an end. A poignant proverb, and so pertinent to the Toy Story franchise it hurts. Since the first film hit cinemas in 1995, Pixar's ragtag band of children's playthings which come to life when their owners' backs are turned have not only delivered the two best films in Pixar's canon, an admirable achievement in itself, but set the gold standard for not just animation but filmmaking in general. Sheriff Woody, Tom Hanks and Buzz Lightyear, Tim Allen are now as synonymous with movies as Don Corleone and Darth Vader. Icons of a new generation of motion pictures which has made Pixar arguably the best and most consistent studio in the world. We've followed the toys' travails for 15 years and have sat with bated breath as the final chapter was first rumoured, then made and now released. But if this really is the end, it could seldom be better. The story is classic Pixar. It's as much, maybe even more so, an adult's film for kids as vice versa. Andy is all grown up and about to depart for college, his loyal to a fault favourite toys languishing unused in a toy box for years, all the others given away. Accidentally donated to Sunnyside Daycare Centre, their initial joy is thwarted by violent toddlers and dictatorial Lotso hugging bear, Ned Beatty. Woody, threatening his own future at college with Andy, returns to save them, and they make a final bid for freedom and one last playtime with their owner. Already, it's clear that Toy Story 3 is far superior to its lesser imitators and contemporaries. The film, helmed by Lee Unkrich, TS1 and 2, director John Lasseter now runs Disney's entire animated wing, does not principally concern itself with cheap laughs, Shrek 3, or OTT referentiality, Shark Tale, instead focusing on two key themes, abandonment and family. Handling such profoundly complex concepts in a manner communicable to both children and adults is incredibly difficult, but you'd never guess it watching Toy Story 3. For a film whose main characters are all toys, there's more human emotion in this film than in any other I've seen this year. As with all the other Pixar heavyweights, it all starts with a phenomenal script. The clever jokes slipped inside simpler ones. Method has long been a hallmark of the studio's best films. Toy Story's staff meeting sequence stands out. And here there's an embarrassment of riches. Satires on office life, prison dramas and family dynamics are all present, handled with such deftness and intelligence, it puts dozens of comedies to shame. The comedy itself, however, is somewhat different from the first two films. Woody and Buzz are no longer relied upon to carry both the plot and the comic relief, instead principally dealing with the former. Mr. Potato Head, Ham and Rex are the comic backbone of the film. Ham's sardonic quips, wryly delivered by Pixar good luck charm John Ratzenberger, Rex's alternating timidity and panic, never better from the mouth of Wallace Shawn, and Potato Head's world wariness at its peak, Don Rickles' old-school New York Jewish twang, bitterly remarking the constant struggles facing the group. Michael Keaton's Ken is also a brilliant creation, not so much in the closet as poking his head out of it. Of course, the lead duo still offer some of the movie's best laughs. I won't spoil it, but Buzz's reset button delivers a hilarious 10 minutes. But they now bear the emotional weight of the film even more so than before. Almost like arguing parents, they struggle to leave Andy, Woody clinging onto the past while Buzz tries to move on. Much like in the first film, when Woody refuses to accept Buzz's ascendance up the toy hierarchy, here he is still living in that same fantasy, Trying to recapture the glory days of Andy's childhood, his ploy to get Andy's attention by stealing his mobile phone is heartbreaking in its desperation, despite all the laughs, and there are many. The film is, for huge parts, a tragedy on an almost Greek level. The toys are never out of the woods, from trying to escape Sunnyside to the climactic set piece on a rubbish heap. The tangible villain of the piece is Beatty's Lotso, a tyrant fueled by the anguish of being abandoned. Pixar again, going above and beyond to deliver an affecting backstory, who tries to trap them in daycare with help from the terrifying muscle Big Baby. In reality, the enemy is rejection. For all their Herculean efforts, we somehow know from the first minute that things won't go back to being the same for the toys. A fact tellingly revealed by the scenes with Andy's mother as she struggles to accept her firstborn's departure. Andy's family is explored here, no longer the Tom and Jerry-esque pairs of legs walking around, and their fleeting screen time only reinforces this fear of abandonment we share with Woody, Buzz et al. The now small family of toys know they must stick together, and the more tribulations they endure, the more heavy the emotional wallop the film carries. The smaller ensemble are like the last of the Mohicans, and their sense of family is ultimately what they must rely on to carry on, no longer loved as they once were and inseparable from one another. Toy Story 3 is without a doubt the film of the year, and really ranks up with the first two as Pixar's best output to date. The wit, the emotion, the sheer humanity of the film is what makes it so unforgettable. Although tagged as a kids' film for adults, this is the first where the opposite seems more likely. The message of the film, difficult to swallow as it may be, is that life moves on, and if we aren't willing to change with the times, we will be left behind, whether toy or human. And now it's time for us to realise Toy Story is gone, just like Woody and Buzz. We've got to move forward. A lump in our throats, but joy in our hearts, 10-10. One of the most staggering cinematic achievements of the past 5 years, not just visually, but emotionally. A fitting end to what must now surely be named the greatest film trilogy of all time. Toy Story 3 delivers on absolutely everything, from humour to sadness to poignant observation. They may be child's playthings, but Woody, Buzz, the Potato Heads, Ham, Rex, Jessie, Slinky Dog and Bullseye have played with adult emotions once again, and saying goodbye is heartbreaking. They might miss Andy, but not nearly as much as we're going to miss them. Luke Grundy is a fervent assimilator of media, living amid the bright lights of London, England. If he's not watching films or listening to music, he's probably asleep, eating or dead. An aspiring writer, journalist and musician, he is the creator of Movie, Moss blog, Odessa and Tucson, and lives for epistemology. Toy Story 3 is arguably the most eagerly awaited family movie of 2010. After the huge success of Toy Story 15 years ago, followed by Toy Story 2 in 1999, it is little wonder the kids who grew up with these movies are anxious for another look at these characters. While I have no worries this Disney, Pixar animation will please this now almost grown-up crowd, parents of younger children may find this new adventure, and its maturing storyline is more intense than their expectations. Andy, voice of John Morris, the owner of the toys, is now 17 years old and getting ready to leave for college. His mum, voice of Laurie Metcalf, insists he goes through his belongings before he leaves, suggesting he sort them into boxes labelled attic for storage, donations and trash. From the perspective of his playthings, which have been relegated to the toy box for a long time, this is a heart-wrenching moment. The situation feels even worse when Woody's voicey of Tom Hanks is placed into the coveted going to college box and the rest of the gang are pitched into a garbage sack. Although Andy intends to put the bag in the attic, his choice of packing container leads to a near rendezvous with a garbage truck. Desperate not to end up at the landfill, Buzz, Jessie, Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, Slinky Dog, Rex, Ham and Barbie, voices of Tim Allen, Joan Cusack, Don Rickles, Estelle Harris, Blake Clark, Wallace Shawn, John Ratzenberger and Jodie Benson, choose instead to climb into the donation box headed to a daycare centre. Meanwhile, Woody, who is the only one who knows the unfortunate incident was all a mistake, follows behind, hoping to convince the others to come home, but the group is unwilling to accept Woody's wild tale of accidental disposal, especially after they arrive at the facility and are greeted by a strawberry-scented bear named Lotso, Ned Beatty, introducing them to the horde of other toys that reside at Sunnyside. Their pink host assures the new arrivals they will always be played with and never forgotten again. Andy's outgrown toys are convinced they have found a new home, yet Woody still isn't comfortable with the seemingly perfect arrangement. When he insists on heading back, the others decide it is time to part company. Woody begins his arduous journey believing his pals have found a better place until he meets Chuckles, voice of Bud Lucky, an escapee from Sunnyside. The sad-faced clown explains the daycare is actually a prison-like place where toys endure torturous treatment by very active youngsters during the day, and by night face the oppressive rule of the two-faced Lotso and his cohorts, including Ken, voice of Michael Keaton, and an eerie-looking doll named Big Baby. Woody returns determined to free his friends, and the film transitions into an adventure on the level of The Great Escape. As the plot delves into scenes of characters facing perilous situations, the focus of the script moves away from the jokes and fun displayed in the earlier movies. And this is where the great age divide takes place. Frightening characters like a cymbal-clapping monkey employed as a security guard in trucks with prowling headlights used as guards are coupled with life-threatening moments such as a scene where the heroes are on the brink of death and grasp each other's hands while awaiting their ultimate doom. These creative decisions are sure to make some families wonder how the movie managed to garner a G rating from the MPAA. Still, the production is likely to be all the older fans had hoped for. Highly imaginative concepts will keep their attentions engaged, while amazing animation and performances packed with real drama will have them forgetting they are really just watching pixels on a screen. Age-appropriate audiences will undoubtedly laugh and cry for all the right reasons, while parents of wee ones may want to preview it first or wait for the home video release to avoid fearful tears. We loved Toy Story and Toy Story 2 and were super excited for the release of Toy Story 3 on DVD. On November 2nd, Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment released Toy Story 3 on DVD and in the Blu-ray combo pack. You can purchase the DVD and Blu-ray combo pack in stores and online, retailing for $29.99 for the DVD and $45.99 for the Blu-ray combo pack. Swee and plopper. The creative minds behind Disney Pixar's groundbreaking animated blockbusters invite you back inside the toy box for a heartwarming and hilarious high-definition movie experience you'll never forget. In Toy Story 3, Woody, voiced by Tom Hanks, Buzz Lightyear, voiced by Tim Allen, and the rest of the Toy Story gang return for an all-new adventure, along with a few new faces, some plastic, some plush, including Barbie's counterpart Ken, voiced by Michael Keaton, a thespian hedgehog named Mr. Pricklepants, voiced by Timothy Dalton, and a strawberry-scented bear named Lotso Huggenbear, voiced by Ned Beatty. It's the biggest, best, most exciting toy story of them all. Raves Access Hollywood's Scott Mantz, as Andy prepares to depart for college, Woody, Buzz, Jessie, and the rest of Andy's faithful toys wonder what will become of them. But when a mix-up lands them at Sunnyside Daycare, they meet a host of new toys and soon discover a wild new adventure is just beginning. Buzzing with hours of exclusive bonus features, including an interactive trivia game and TEF Pixar short film Day and Night, Toy Story 3 Goes to Infinity and Beyond on Blu-ray High Def. Suggested retail prices for Toy Story 3 are $45.99, US $52. $99 Canada for the 4-disc Blu-ray combo pack, Blu-ray plus DVD plus digital copy, $39.99 Canada for the 2-disc Blu-ray, and $29.99 Canada for the single-disc DVD. Also available on November 2nd is an exciting Ultimate Toy Box 3 movie collection that contains all 3 Toy Story releases on Blu-ray, DVD and digital copy, priced at $100 in US, $115 Canada. This release contains Toy Story 1-disc DVD, 1-disc Blu-ray, 1-disc digital copy Toy Story 2, 1-disc DVD, 1-disc Blu-ray, 1-disc digital copy Toy Story 3, 1-disc DVD, 2-disc Blu-ray, 1-disc digital copy Toy Story 3, bonus features, DVD, Day and Night, the innovative and entertaining short from the imagination of Pixar artist and director Teddy Newton, Toys. A closer look at all of Toy Story 3's beloved toys, from updating the classic characters to the creation of the Sunnyside daycare and Bonnie's room toys. Buzz Lightyear mission logs. The Science of Adventure, produced in conjunction with NASA. This hybrid animation documentary of Buzz's visit to the International Space Station focuses on research in zero gravity and Buzz's triumphant return to Earth. Path to Pixar. Editorial. Pixar editors, past and future, share anecdotes about their careers. The gang's all here, a touching look at the returning voice talent for Toy Story 3 and an introduction to the voices of the new characters. A Toy's Eye View, creating a whole new land, a sneak peek at the new Toy Story themed playland at Hong Kong Disneyland. Studio Stories, a series of amusing animated anecdotes about life at Pixar 1. Where's Gordon? An animator finds a hidden room at Pixar 2. Cereal Bar. The majestic and expansive Pixar cereal bar is explored 3 clean start. The Toy Story 3 animators shave their heads to mark the start of the film. BLU Ray Combo Pack. Everything on the DVD Plus. Toy Story Trivia Dash. This cool game challenges you to sprint to the finish with Woody, Buzz, Jessie and Rex as you quickly answer questions about all 3 Toy Story movies. Sign Explore. Commentary by director Lee Unkrich and producer Darla K. Anderson, Beyond the Toy Box. An alternative commentary track featuring leads from story, tech, art and animation. Commentary by story supervisor Jason Katz, supervising technical director Guido Quaroni, production designer Bob Pawley and supervising animators Bobby Podesta and Michael Venturini. Beginnings. Setting a story in motion, screenwriter Michael Arndt analyses successful opening scenes from Toy Story, Finding Nemo and The Incredibles. Bonnie's Playtime. A story roundtable, a roundtable discussion with director Lee Unkrich and the story artists who brought the Bonnie's Playtime scene to life. Rounding up a Western opening, the development of the movie's exciting opening scene. Life of a Shot. Toy Story 3 artists and technicians describe their contributions to a few of the shots in the film's Western opening. Goodbye Andy. An exploration of character design, acting and animation in the scene Andy's Goodbye. Accidental toy makers. By creating the Toy Story characters, the Pixar filmmakers found themselves in the unlikely role of toy designers. Meet the toy company that took a chance on manufacturing the now iconic toys and learn of their incredible success that began with a modest number of Woody and Buzz Lightyear toys 15 years ago. Making of Day and Night, the story behind the unique 2D, 3D blended short. The rides, bonus, John Morris, bonus, lending a voice, bonus, cereal bar, bonus, Dancing with the Stars. Bonus, me thoughtsy really enjoyed watching Toy Story 3 and the boys had no issue laughing out loud throughout the movie. I especially loved it when Buzz Lightyear spoke Spanish. After all, he is one of my favourite characters in the movie. Wowzers! I hope that Walt Disney Home Entertainment will be coming with a Toy Story 4. You have to check out the adorable Disney Pixar short Day and Night, as well as the Studio Stories and Toy Story Trivia Dash. A big thank you goes out to Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment for another amazing, heartwarming family movie. I received a copy of Toy Story 3 on DVD from Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment to facilitate this review. All opinions expressed in this post are 100% mine. I've struggled in writing my review for Toy Story 3 because my nieces hate it. It is a film that gets very intense, too intense for my nieces, and I didn't know how much to take that into account. I had the same struggle with my Pinocchio review, which in my defence was only the second review I had ever written, but at the time I said, Pinocchio is visually gorgeous with good, if heavy-handed moral teachings. It can be scary for kids and has a grim overall feel. I appreciate it, but I can't give it my highest rating because of how I know it affected me as a child. So I gave Pinocchio a B+, and I've gone back and forth on it ever since. In many ways, the issue is the same with Toy Story 3. How much does a child's opinion count in reviewing an animated film? We know that animation isn't just for children, but in the same breath, if they don't like it, isn't that a problem? I don't know. I honestly can't decide. What do you think? Anyway, in the end, I can only review a movie based on what I think of it. At least with the Pinocchio review, I was taking into account only what I thought of it as a child, not other children. I don't have that luxury with Toy Story 3, but I didn't let anyone else's opinions affect any of my other reviews, so why should my niece's feelings be any different? I'm just going to tell you what I think. So here goes. I love Toy Story 3! I mean, this was me after watching it yesterday. And yet I was also laughing and enjoying the tense moments, so it isn't just a cry fest. It may just be the best third instalment in a franchise ever. Return of the King, Indiana Jones and Last Crusade may be better, but that's all I can think of. Can you? Anyway, in this film we are 11 years after the events of Toy Story 2, and just as you might expect, Andy has grown up and is off to college. In the opening scenes they lay out two key themes for the rest of the movie. 1. Andy's toys are a family, and while they've lost some, they stick together as best as they can. 2. That Andy will play with them one more time. But both seem like an impossibility because Andy wants to take Woody to college with him, and the rest are accidentally sent to a daycare centre called Sunnyside as a donation by Andy's mom. At first, the daycare seems like a pretty great setup for the toys. They will get played with again after 10 years in dust, and that seems pretty great. They are also welcomed by the leader of Sunnyside, a bear named Lotso, for Lotso Huggin' Bear, voiced by Ned Beatty. Unfortunately, all is not sunny at the daycare, and the next section of the movie turns into a prison escape story, but it never gets serious for too long. Most of the humour comes from Buzz, who gets put on his Spanish setting. So funny. And Michael Keaton is also hilarious as the Ken doll who falls instantly in love with Barbie and is very concerned with his wardrobe. There is also humour from a little girl named Bonnie's Toys who fancy themselves a kind of theatre group. We also learn from these toys the true story about Lotso and how he came to run Sunnyside like a jail. Directed by Lee Unkrich, he is not afraid to push the boundaries of our expectations. Most people assume characters in a movie like this are not going to die, but boy do they come close in the famous, or infamous depending on how you look at it, incinerator scene. It is such a bold scene. I still can't believe they cut it that close, but it is incredibly gripping, if way too intense for my nieces. I completely get their response because I also feel tense watching it. How can you not? With the prison escape done, we get the end of the movie, which is Andy's chance to say goodbye to his childhood, and for the toys, especially Woody, to say goodbye to him. Pixar is so great at these type of emotional, life-changing moments, and this is one of the best. Some may say it is unrealistic for a college student to play with his toys one last time, but I don't think it is. Maybe in a previous era it might have been, but this is the era of adults trick-or-treating and dressing up for Comic-Con. This is the era of grown men collecting Funko dolls and displaying them proudly. I'm not the most nostalgic person in the world, but even I have dolls displayed proudly in my room, and I'm 34 years old. If I had to give them up, I would cry because my grandma gave them to me. There's no reason to assume Andy would be any less attached to these toys. But even if you set that reality aside, saying goodbye to the toys is symbolic of Andy saying goodbye to his childhood. And I think he knows that. In many ways, it is kind of like the end of the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh when Christopher tells Pooh that He can't do nothing anymore, even though it is what he loves most of all. Plus, in this final scenes, we get the fulfillment of the two promises made at the beginning of the film, creating a nice sense of closure to the film. Just as we were promised, Andy plays with the toys one more time and they all stay together because they are a family. Love that. I think we all have those moments in life where we put away childhood and become a grown-up. It's like the scripture says, "When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." That is the ending of Toy Story 3, and it is an emotion almost anyone can relate and respond to. In a way, you could call it the great necessary evil of life. Despite what Peter Pan wants, we all must eventually grow up. It practically goes without saying the animation is stunning, bright and colourful, with a clarity and realism to all the characters I haven't seen in Pixar till this film. Also, the voice work is top-notch with all our familiar characters and new voice actors such as Keaton, Beatty, Whoopi Goldberg, Timothy Dalton, Bonnie Hunt and Jeff Garlin. Everyone involved in Toy Story 3 did an amazing job. Thankfully, we have Pixar to keep making films for adults and some children who aren't too terrified. They help keep some of the magic alive within all of us, and Toy Story 3 has magic in spades. I loved watching it again. And if I ever have kids, maybe I will just fast forward the incinerator scene so they can enjoy it too. Overall, grade A+. And for the record, I have faith they have a good idea for Toy Story 4 and it will be good. It is not going to be a continuation of the Andy storyline, but exists solely in the world of the toys. A romance, I've been told. John Lasseter is directing 4, so sign me up. Toy Story 3 is the best of the series with few flaws. It is about the connection between toys, their owners and each other. It is also about friendship, loyalty, betrayal and moving on with one's life. One lesson learned is that the past can affect the future in a major way. The film is rated G. I urge everyone to see this horrific movie. Many teens may look forward to college. Without their parents caring for them, they have total freedom finally. But what about things that need their tender loving care, TLC? What about the toys they leave behind? In the most anticipated summer movie of 2010, Toy Story 3, Andy, the 7-year-old imaginative boy we first met in the original Toy Story, has matured and is ready for college. He is no longer the inquisitive young boy who could not keep his hands off his favourite toys. Now he looks at his old toy chest indifferently. Your family doesn't outgrow you, or just appreciate and take care of you for a while, then they just throw you away. Toys are constantly outgrown by their owners who play with them. Have you ever wondered what if would be like to know what toys go through? Toy Story 3 is a story of everyone's favourite gang of toys owned by Andy. Woody, Buzz, Jessie, Bullseye, Mr. and Mrs. Potato Heads, Slinky the dog, Rex, Ham and the 3 little aliens. Here we meet lots of intriguing new characters. Many look sweet and innocent from the outside, but harbour dark nature inside, such as the huge plush strawberry-scented teddy bear called Lotso, his accomplice Ken, a girl's toy who loves to dress up, Stretch, a purple octopus whose squishiness helps him get into tight places. Andy's toys end up in Sunnyside Daycare, a place where children in the butterfly room played happily with their toys and never outgrew them because new kids come all the time. The toys are governed by Lotso. The toys are transported to the caterpillar room, but little do they know that this room houses a swarm of devious, lethal little imbeciles who enjoy butchering new toys by licking them, putting them up in the noses, smashing them and dunking them in glue, glitter and macaroni. Woody was separated from the gang, but managed to reconnect and lead them in an impossible adventure of their life. One of my favourite first toys was a cloth tiger that I loved to chew on. My mum joked that it was the dragon tiger fight since I was born in the year of the dragon. Of course the dragon always won. My current favourite toys are a plush blue penguin with red scarf and a pink bunny. They are so cute. My mom, dad and I often played catching the penguin and giggled a lot when we played. I sometimes sleep on my penguin for a pillow. When my dad gave away my toys for donation, I hated him because I became deeply attached to my toys. My mum and I saw the first preview of Toy Story 3 in September 2009 at the Disney D23 Expo, where we attended the panel discussion by director Lee Unkrich and producer Darla Anderson. We also saw Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2 in 3D there. Awesome! I was looking forward to Toy Story 3 since then. I give the movie 4.5 out of 5 starfish. It has more loss, action, drama and humour than the previous 2 films. One flaw. If the toddlers in the caterpillar room were mauling the toys all the time, wouldn't their teachers intervene? Thinking back about my preschool years, I would think so. Also, how could Lotso pull Woody into the huge dumpster when he is not tall enough and too fat to jump up high? My favourite character is Woody, smart, kind, loyal, who will never give up on you. His motto is "No toy gets left behind." What more could you ask for in a friend? One of the funniest scenes is when Buzz was accidentally in his Spanish mode. He started to dance with Jessie the cowgirl and became infatuated with her. By far the funniest scene is when Mr. Potato Head had to manoeuvre in a floppy tortilla. Toy Story 3 is the best of the series with few flaws. It is about the connection between toys, their owners and each other. It is also about friendship, loyalty, betrayal and moving on with one's life. One lesson learned is that the past can affect the future in a major way. The film is rated G. I urge everyone to see this horrific movie. You may leave your toys, but do not leave behind the innocence and imagination of childhood. Dear Lee Unkrich, US 2010, 102 mins locating a winsome blend of peppy ensemble adventure and nostalgic reflection. Toy Story 3 is the type of film adults might goad their just as eager children into seeing again. Coming 15 years since the first film revolutionised animated storytelling, and over a decade since the last instalment, this chapter again imaginatively details some cooperative toy questing, while also movingly essaying change, and what it means for the fundamental nature of a relationship to be irrevocably altered. The film is gorgeous and inviting and makes superb use of its 3D. The movie unfolds as Andy, now 18, prepares for college, his mum pressing him to make some choices about what to do with all his stuff. Woody and Buzz Lightyear prepare the gang for attic mode, but a bit of confusion lands them in donations for Sunnyside daycare centre, where they're warmly greeted by other toys, including a pink teddy bear named Lotso. A seeming dream scenario, plenty of kids to play with them, devolves into something less ideal though, and Woody, who's been tabbed to go to college with Andy, re-infiltrates the centre to spearhead a breakout of his pals. If Toy Story 3 on the surface seems to house some contradictory notions amongst the toys about their reasons for being, its story artfully balances a careening involving main plot of escape with undercurrents of fear about being quickly outgrown and neglected in their relationship with Andy, something to which every adult, parent or not, can readily relate. A couple story bits, including Mrs. Potato Head's convenient ability to glimpse through space via her missing eye, come off as contrived, but for the most part screenwriter Michael Arndt, Little Miss Sunshine, does a crackerjack job of sending up Prison Break cinema, replete with all its diversions and schemes. The film's new characters, including a Ken doll who really loves his clothes, are amusing and nicely integrated with old favourites, and its gags, even when sometimes obvious, Buzz being accidentally switched to Spanish mode, just as frequently delight. Visually, the film is gorgeous and inviting and makes superb use of its 3D. It peddles clutter that means actually something, whether it's in the form of the colourful, chaotic Sunnyside or Andy's room, in which teenage posters and mementos overlap past keepsakes like archaeological layers. Production companies: Pixar Animation Studios, Walt Disney Pictures Worldwide Distribution, Walt Disney Studios producer, Darla Anderson executive producer, John Lasseter screenplay, Michael Arndt, story by John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, Lee Unkrich cinematography, Jeremy Lasky, Kim White production designer, Bob Pauly editor, Ken Schretzman music, Randy Newman main voice cast, Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Joan Cusack, Don Rickles, John Ratzenberger, Estelle Harris, Wallace Shawn, Ned Beatty, Michael Keaton, demonstrating you cannot keep a good toy in the attic. Disney and Pixar are at it again with their summer animation film, Toy Story 3,